Well, hey everyone, it's Black Shaw here. Yes, as we all know, I've been suspended off of, uploading on the channel because I'm in violation of YouTube's harassment, cyberbullying policies. How dare I do a video on CNN Crisis Actor? Almost 4 years ago. They're coming back now to remove the video, hit me with the community strike, and then they also hit me with the community strike for the 9/11 Trump green screen video. Apparently that was bullying, so now I've bullied Donald Trump. Well, first I bullied Dan Bilzerian. Then, so they hit me with the strike for that, because how dare I call him a satanic vampire outside Mandalay Bay demanding a cop's long gun. Which, to be honest with you, now looking at everything that's going on, in Florida and Vegas, nobody ever went in. The cops aren't doing their job. The cops aren't protecting people, the civilians, even though they're saying, give us your guns, give us, just hand over your Second Amendment because we'll protect you. You don't need these assault rifles because we'll protect you. And they don't. And so, to be honest with you, now looking back on the Dan Bilzerian Las Vegas Mandalay Bay shooting, I'm like, you know what? Maybe he had the right idea to just tell the cop, just give me your damn assault rifle because you're not going to do anything anyway. So, maybe I do owe Dan Bilzerian an apology about him demanding a cop's gun, and I was calling him a clown and stuff. So maybe I do owe him an apology. But then, for YouTube to hit me with this strike over the CNN Crisis Actor video, I'm just like, wow, wow. For me personally, I felt like they, with this whole Florida shooting and this kid David Hogg, and I don't even know if you could say his name now because you just get banned now. But with this whole thing now, everybody's been, I've seen so many, I've seen channels literally, like, as I'm watching what the videos they're doing, their whole channel just get taken down, or get a strike on the video, and the video is just removed. Like, you what is this, where you refresh the page and the video is just gone, or the channel is just gone. So we're under attack. We're definitely under attack, and I appreciate everybody who's come to the other channel. It's only for 2 weeks, YouTube is saying, but it's just petty, and they're trying to, strategize. So they'll do it two at once, hit you with 2 community strikes at once, so that they could just get you out in one fell swoop, and you have no idea. It's part of the game. It's part of the game, but with this whole Florida thing, it's just been draconian now. The level of censorship, and you can't talk about them. But this kid, this one particular kid now has been on literally, every single news program, morning talk show, evening news program, weekend news program. I'm like, I thought these kids are supposed to be back in school now. Is he even going back to school now? I guess they don't need him to, because he just works for them now. So why even go to school? You've made it now. So, it's just, this what goes on. You have these mass shootings, and it immediately becomes about how can we take your Second Amendment right away. And I'm somebody who actually lives in New York, where nobody has an assault rifle. Legally has an assault rifle, not that I know of. I know people in New York who have guns, but it's very difficult to get a legal firearm here in New York. Having said that, not everywhere is New York. And the Second Amendment, I tell people, people died to protect that right. Including black people. That was the point of some of the, later on portions of the last video I did. A black man, at least allegedly, that's how the story goes, that he, this black man, Crispus Attucks, was the first black man to die in defending, and fighting against British rule, and being, owned by the Queen and all these other inbred satanic reptilian, Illuminati people. That's what it is. So I appreciate everybody who's come over to the other channel. It's only for 2 weeks, this temporary ban. The point of me doing this video today is, as a lot of people know, Billy Graham died. He passed away a few days ago. And it's just, I mean, he was about 99 to 100 years old. I mean, he was very old. And it's like, tributes pour in. He's a wonderful person. He was great for humanity. And when I heard the news that he had passed away, I was just like, wow, because and when they were all talking about how wonderful he was, and now apparently they're going to let him lay in some place where they let they let the presidents be viewed when they die and everything, and now they're going to put Billy Graham there, and he's only like the fifth civilian to ever get that honor or whatever. And I'm like, wow, so this is what being in the Illuminati gets you. Because when I was reading how the Illuminati created Undetectable Mind Control Slave by Fritz Springmeier and Cisco Wheeler, I mean, it was like what, 5 to 10 pages about Billy Graham and how he was in the Illuminati, how he's a mind control slave, how he was triggering out and working with other mind control slaves, how he was passing coded information to the Illuminati, how he was working in drug trafficking, etc. And so the point of this video today is going to be reading some of the excerpts about Billy Graham in Fritz Springmeier's book, which I have and I always recommend to people, which in my opinion is really the how-to manual for the Illuminati. I've learned so much. I've basically learned the majority of what I know about the matrix system and all this through this book. And when I first read it, I'm like, what the hell does a lot of this even mean? Like, it didn't even make sense. But then as I started, media watching and observing and all that other stuff, I've realized, I mean, how deep this book really is. So having said all that, let's just get right into it. This is from page 131 of How the Illuminati Create an Undetectable Mind Control Slave, Fritz Springmeier. The use of religious fronts. A great deal of monarch programming and slave abuse, as well as the drug trade, is done under three major covers of fronts: religious fronts, the front of national security, and the military, the entertainment fields, especially the country western industry, the rock music industry, and Hollywood. The religious fronts are popular for centuries, especially when groups like the Jesuits, the Assassins, and other groups held immense power. Religious fronts are still being used, such as Jay-Z Knight, Elizabeth Clare's Prophet Cut Church, the Church of Scientology, the Charismatic Movement, Jim Jones in Jonestown, and David Kokesh's group, etc. Billy Ray Moore's Lord's Chapel is entirely a mind control operation. There is a non-denomination Pentecostal church in southern West Washington whose entire membership is Satanists under mind control. Various overseas missionary groups are covers for the CIA and mind control. It would take a book to explain how these religious fronts are part of the total trauma-based mind control and how they operate to protect mind control. However, there are publications which go into some of the CIA connections to these groups. Some of the deceptions, such as the lone assassin idea, have been used for centuries as a cover for assassinations planned by the occult hierarchy. If we're going to really reveal how the monarch mind control is done, we will have to explain how the deception is done. If one describes a chameleon only by saying it is like a lizard without mentioning the camouflage, then the most important part has been overlooked. Religious fronts are an important part of the Illuminati program for making slaves. In fact, due to their Gnostic philosophy of balancing their good deeds with their bad deeds, it is almost essential to have a religious front through which one can do good deeds. Even though adding this section to the book will spur some blindly to lash out at the book, still the whole story needs to come out. When we, the authors of this book, write that the monarch-type total mind control threatens everything this nation stands for, we are not exaggerating. The monarch mind control program has not been used just to program slaves, but it has been part of a much bigger deception. When this deception is realized by this nation, it will shatter the very fabric of trust that Americans have in their institutions. If Americans will begin to understand the power structure behind these institutions and who controls this structure, they will begin to see the lies in the scripts that they have been fed since infancy. And you, The reader of this section in this book, if you love the truth, can help begin the healing process to overcome some of the devastation that is going to rock this nation when this truth comes out. Everyone in the Illuminati of any significance has participated in grooming the public to believe that Billy Graham is a great man of God. Graham has stood beside each of the presidents and the Pope. The Illuminati doesn't just program individuals, they program whole nations. The public has been led to believe in a television image. But what if the secular media's image of Billy Graham is not real? For Christians, it means that they can quit trusting in a man and place their trust fully on God. For secular teachers, they can begin to see the extent of how Americans' institutions have been corrupted by the horrible trauma-based mind control. The heartbeat of the body of Christ is crying out that something is terribly wrong. We will address that. All of us, whether Christian or not, must step up out of the lies and look clearly out into the darkness and see every facet of this evil mind control. When men who worship the God of this world place "In God We Trust" on the Federal Reserve banknotes, we who know the truth must step out of our dream world and realize that they mean Lucifer. By the way, the Federal Reserve is not a government agency, but a private banking institution of the Illuminati. This has been documented in a number of writings. The issue at hand in this next section is to show how the institution called the Christian Church and the world in general has been deceived by a program multiple and this trauma-based mind control. The infiltration and control of the Christian religion has been one of the easiest tasks of the Illuminati. The Christian churches are what the intelligence agencies called soft targets. The deception of Billy Graham, a mind-controlled front. In 1992, Billy Graham broadcast all over the United States his radio show called Embrace America 2000. In the Louisiana area, it came over the KJM Lafayette station. During the show, Billy Graham told the American people we need to embrace the New World Order. Billy Graham is also on record stating that people can have salvation through paganism, another name for witchcraft. For instance, in McCall magazine, January 1987, Graham stated, "I used to believe that pagans in far-off countries were lost, were going to hell. I no longer believe that. I believe that there are ways of recognizing the existence of God, through nature, for instance. Pagans believe that salvation can be obtained through nature. This is not a pleasant story." Billy Graham has built up to be the most respected popular person in America. Who wants to find out they have been deceived? Historically, Billy Graham's deceptions is one of the greatest deceptions that has ever been perpetrated. Some might argue the greatest, making Benedict Arnold, Quisling, and the Trojan horse pale into significance. In Fritz B. Wise's Serpent's book, which exposed Billy Graham as a Luciferian in 1991, it is explained that high-level Satanism is Gnosticism, which requires that the force of these great satanic magicians be balanced. In other words, in high-level Satanism, your good deeds must balance your evil deeds. People do not realize that unless someone does good deeds, they cannot be a high-level Satanist. That is why some of the greatest philanthropists are also our leading national Satanists. To see Billy Graham do something commendable does not disqualify him from Satanism. In fact, it is a requirement if he's been part of the Illuminati, such as ex-insiders / witnesses say he was. But the other side will argue, how can we verify the testimony of your witnesses, Fritz? Remember what happened to over 100 people who had some type of knowledge about the Kennedy assassination. Jim Marrs, in his book Crossfire on the Kennedy assassination, lists 103 people who were key figures in knowing about the assassination who have died, many in circumstances that indicate assassination. The story we are dealing with here is just as sensitive to the elites as the Kennedy assassination, because it involves their preparations for the creation of a false Christ called by Christians the Antichrist, who will be the master handler programmer. One of the best witnesses is a Monarch program survivor who has escaped from being a high-level Pentagon slave. This survivor witnessed Billy Graham working for the Illuminati. This survivor also carried messages for the satanic hierarchy and personally knows that Billy Graham has been carrying messages for the top secret Illuminati to presidents and heads of state. This person's information has been backed up by independent witnesses. A second ex-Satanist also remembers Billy Graham as a Satanist. Still, another person, an ex-Illuminati person who has MPD, stood in front of Billy Graham and watched his eyes. This person said that it was very clear that Billy Graham has NPD and that he switches personalities. By happenstance or God's will, Fritz received a report from one of the women who went to church with Billy Graham's wife, Ruth. The woman was told by Ruth in conversation that her husband, Billy Graham, is strange and that he always sleeps with his eyes open. It is characteristic of people who have MPD to sleep with their eyes open. People who have MPD may have a devout Christian personality and a devout satanic personality, all within a single body. This is not uncommon. In Billy Graham's case, he is fully aware of what he is doing for the enemy in all his personalities, although his Christian personality may not be ecstatic about it all. Billy Graham's Decision magazine on its front page caption is "Change from the Inside Out" and displays an infinity loop on the cover. Many monarch slaves have had lots of programming done around the infinity loop. This is an important trigger to remind them how they are captured by the unending, repeating, rebuilding programming. There are countless little things like this, which are evidence that Billy Graham is playing a role in the satanic mind control of the Illuminati. In 1954, the man who ran security for the Sacramento Crusade saw high-priced hookers sneak into Billy Graham's room prior to him going out for the crusade. Billy Graham and this high-priced hooker were alone together in the room. It is the type of thing that has opened Billy Graham up to blackmail. Should Graham ever try to stray from the proper course set for him by the Illuminati, they have plenty of ammunition to blackmail him. You may ask, why would the Satanists from generational satanic families want to intimidate Billy Graham with fear? Why isn't he from a generational satanic family? The answer is that the whole satanic system operates off of fear. Intimidation and fear are standard everyday parts of their makeup and actions.
For Bill Whitney,
I've never been paranoid.
fear plays a large part in family life.
I feel like something's gonna happen. And if I scratch the surface, there'll be something terrible underneath.
Sort of the counterpart to the saying there is no honor among thieves. The satanic hierarchy are in constant intimidation and power struggles. When Billy Graham wanted to, he could call up Henry Kissinger and say, "Tell him to call me the minute he comes in." Henry Kissinger is right in the middle of what the Illuminati is doing. Kissinger is a member of P2 Freemasonry. If we were to assume that Billy Graham were not involved, and that is the big if, since we know he is. If one studies P2 Masonic recruiting tactics given in the book In God's Name, page 116, then the reader will grasp that anyone of Billy Graham's stature who associates so freely with P2 Freemasons will be targeted and blackmailed and forced to join. Once they join, new members are forced to compromise other possible targets. Billy Graham is part of the people who implement the Monarch program, which was a joint Illuminati CIA total mind control program done to people. We know that he is serviced by Monarch sexual slaves, their kitten alters. It is very easy for the network to keep these poor victims, Monarch slaves, from talking, and so the full extent of much of what has gone on may not come out in our lifetimes. Billy Graham's schedule is filled with activities such as playing golf with people who are in the Illuminati or are Hollywood types. The full impact of this constant fellowshipping with darkness is hard for people to grasp because they picture that Graham is an evangelist and so therefore he must go where the sinners are. This is an expression. Show me a man's friends and I'll tell you about him. It's one thing to spend time with evil to give it a chance to repent and come to the light. It is another to fellowship with evil and allow it to remain in darkness. How Billy Graham plays a key role in reprogramming Monarch slaves. Two different talkative Satanists told sources of mine about two different coven meetings here in Portland in the summer of 1993, when the covens discussed the benefits that the Satanists were going to get from the Billy Graham crusade. I know one of the benefits for the Satanists was that monarch programmees who had become Christians and had been deactivated the effect of their mind control programming were to be reprogrammed with Billy Graham's help. When Billy Graham arrived in town, someone on his crusade staff had managed to find and send out invitations to many of the survivors of satanic ritual abuse in Portland to come to a special meeting to personally meet with Billy Graham. At this special meeting with SRA victims, Billy Graham personally began saying the buzzwords to reactivate these people's programming, especially the monarch survivors. This comes from several witnesses. For a number of years now, the Billy Graham crusade has been putting messages across the bottom of television screens that has Activision codes for monarch survivors. Those monarch survivors who have become devout Christians to escape the nightmare of the monarch mind control are often not aware of the danger of watching the Billy Graham crusade on television. When people are activated, special people are in the area and they take the monarch survivors to what are called near-death trauma centers. These centers are used then to reprogram these poor people. There are 5 in this area, of which we located 2 and forced them to move their sites. Religious fronts, denominations, individual churches, and certain ministers are used to hide criminal activity. Billy Graham, who is a program multiple himself, is exceptionally adept at managing his monarch kittens. The drug money laundered through his crusades is carefully handled by many monarch slaves working in shifts and teams, so that the whole scheme cannot be uncovered by catching one person. Billy Graham runs big operations all over the world under the guise of evangelism. Billy Graham also personally delivers messages to the presidents for the Illuminati, such as when he arrived just prior to Bush's decision to launch Desert Storm. Sometimes the papers even spell out that Billy Graham serves as a message boy. For instance, when he delivered a message in April '92 from the Pope to North Korea's dictator Kim. So, I mean, that's just some of what Fritz Springmeier wrote about Billy Graham. I mean, to be honest, I mean, there's dozens of pages in this book about Billy Graham, but that's really one of the more shocking aspects, is that he was working directly with, the Illuminati to program these people. Now, whether he knew about it or not, or whether he was just in his own program, I don't know. Now, then to hear, after reading all this, I read this years ago, but then reading it again, and then hearing that now they're going to be, he's going to have a public viewing, in this rotunda, where all the presidents laid, and, he's a national treasure. Basically, this is what being in the Illuminati will get you. Now you're in hell, but hey, I mean, at least you get to, your dead, cold, soulless body at this point gets to lay, where the presidents did. I know people kind of talking about him and accurately identifying him as a part of this network of evil. So I wanted to kind of just read an excerpt from that. It's kind of a long video, so I'm gonna have to edit a lot of this, but so still under suspension for the main channel. So, in 2 weeks, I'm assuming YouTube will lift it. I mean, I turned on the news the other day, and they actually were on, what is this? Face the Nation, one of these Sunday talk shows, and talking about YouTube. How dare, how can YouTube allow these videos on this, on these students of this massacre? How can YouTube allow that? And then the woman says, oh yeah, well, we need to do something about it because these are all Russian bots attacking these kids. And, we have to stop these Russian bots. And I'm like, wow. So they're calling people Russian bots now. They want to bring down the truth movement, or really anybody that disagrees with anything they say. And now they call it, that's the new thing, you're a Russian bot, you work for Russia, you're getting paid by Russia. And now, or you're getting paid by the NRA, which I'm sure, works for Russia also. So, This is only, you know, a momentary bump in the road. So, you know, stay tuned and stay with us here on this channel, and I'll see you all in the next one. All right.